Mezentseva, prima ballerina of the prestigious Kirov Ballet of St. Petersburg, Russia. One of the truly great stars of ballet, not only in Russia but in the world today. As the brightest star of the Kirov Ballet, she has received the honor as prima ballerina of dancing all the ballet premieres at the most prestigious stages, such as Grand Opera, La Scala, Royal Opera House, Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center, and many other theaters all over the world, representing the best of Russian ballet for well over a decade. She has received the highest praises of dance critics and the press for her outstanding performances and other contributions to the world of ballet. During her career at the Kirov, now again called the Mariinsky Theater, she has danced the entire Kirov ballet repertoire. Her outstanding talent has been recognized by the highest cultural award Russia can bestow, People's Artist of Russia, and also recognition in the West by winning the gold medal at the International Ballet Competition in Japan. Galina has a depth of experience, which is not just her own training at the VAGANOVA Ballet Academy and the Kirov Theater, but the hundreds of years of the Kirov tradition, and it passes itself on. Galina brings maturity of artistic presence and vision, and it is a very immediate way of informing and helping the younger dancers. Her international reputation and strong experience with the Kirov Ballet will greatly benefit us all. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Galina in this educational ballet video designed especially to acquaint you with the teaching method of classical ballet. The Russian method was founded by Agrippina Vaganova and developed by her pupils into a predictable and systematic approach to ballet education. This educational system has been carefully preserved and passed from generation to generation, from foot to foot. Olga Moiseyeva, one of Vaganova's pupils, was Galina's teacher and coach for almost 20 years at the Kirov Theater, thus placing Galina in the historical, educational, and traditional lineage of the Russian method of classical ballet. Just like Olga Moiseyeva, Galina Mezentseva is also a top graduate of the Vaganova Ballet Academy, one of a few invited into the classe de perfection, and one of a few to move directly into the principal position with the Kirov Ballet. The Russian ballet education system has produced nearly all of the great ballet stars of our time. The Russians are understandably proud of their centuries-old tradition in classical ballet, as well as their consistently superior performances in this beautiful art. They consider it a very significant part of their cultural heritage. And as it says in Dance Now magazine in London, Galina Mezentseva embodies what she has to give: 250 years of ballet history, a living museum of styles, a tradition of teaching as well as performing. Galina and I deeply believe that it is extremely important to preserve and to share this true and precious information with others, especially in the West. Now through this video series, we have an opportunity to see a truly great artist demonstrating a ballet lesson. But before we show you the demonstration lesson, I feel it is important to give an overview of the teaching method, as well as an explanation of some terminology. For example, the difference between ballet and classical ballet. A ballet is simply a theatrical presentation and can be in any style, such as modern or jazz. But classical ballet is determined by repertoire, such as Swan Lake, Giselle, Sleeping Beauty. The most difficult movements are found in these classical ballets, and specifically the classical pas de deux, which is a choreographic poem in 4 parts. The movements are physically demanding and require a great deal of attention to detail. Now I would like to explain what the teaching method of classical dance means. The most difficult movements are found in the classical pas de deux, or choreographic poem in 4 parts. The adagio is the first part. The second part is the male variation. The third part is the female variation. And the fourth part is the coda, or the ending. The achievements of the Russian ballet school are those discovered by the great Russian teacher Agrippina Vaganova. This is not just another method, but the teaching method of classical dance. Vaganova's systematic and analytical approach to teaching enabled an absolutely coherent and not one-whit arbitrary system of teaching to be born. It is based upon the laws of physics and biomechanics. It is scientifically based and physiologically sound. Classical dance is characterized by flight or aerialness. It could be synonymous with allegro work, and adagio work is simply allegro performed in slow motion, and the point work is allegro adapted to point. Agrippina Vaganova analyzed this allegro, or the jumping aspect of classical dance. She discovered that the real task in teaching classical dance or ballet is the gradual instruction of the development of the essentials and the ramifications of those essentials, and putting together the pieces of the variations and adagios of classical dance. Teaching method and the knowledge of how to use it is how to break down the most difficult movements or jumps in the big poses. If these big jumps in the big poses are attempted before the body is ready, then injury will occur. Vera Kostrovitskaya, senior methodologist of the Vaganova Ballet Academy until her death in September of 1979, and leading authority on Vaganova's teaching method, once said, "It is insufficient instruction. Teaching method is not only knowing how to teach, what to teach, and when to teach, but how much of each exercise to give, and in what order and for how long." For example, it has been discovered that for the first year and a half of the 8-year program for the study of classical ballet, the student must not take their leg above 90 degrees. This is a magic angle for developing strength in the body as discovered by kinesiologists. So even if the student desires or even has the flexibility to lift the leg above this angle, the teacher will not permit it for the recommended period of time, which is the first half of the elementary work. Another example is how we open and close our legs, which is in a rotated manner. The study of classical ballet should not be attempted without complete rotation of the legs. The strength needed to hold this turnout may take years. The academic ballet lesson should not be attempted unless the approach to studying it is done in a methodical, scientific manner. Any other way will result in injury or serious health problems. For example, almost everything we teach at the bar is a piece of a jump. Remember that classical dance is characterized by flight or aerialness. From the very beginning, we know what our goal is in teaching, and we have the method for achieving that goal, which will put all of the odds in our students' favor that they will be able to develop to their fullest potential. It's a very slow process, and the ligaments, tendons, muscles, and tissues in the body must be carefully prepared to execute these potentially dangerous jumps. Remember, adagio work is simply these jumps performed in slow motion, and point work is the adaptation of these movements onto point. The movements of classical dance are framed in 12 poses of the body. This is equivalent to the 12 chords of music. From these 12 poses, infinite variations can occur. The poses are croisé devant, we have big pose and small pose, croisé derrière, big pose and small pose, effacé devant, big pose and small pose, effacé derrière, big pose and small pose, écarté devant, big pose and small pose, écarté derrière, big pose and small pose, first arabesque, big pose and small pose, second arabesque, big pose and small pose, third arabesque, big pose and small pose, fourth arabesque, big pose and small pose. Then we have attitude croisée and attitude effacée. There are 3 positions of the arms. There's first position, second position, and third position, or a combination of the 3 positions. For example, here you see right arm in first and left arm in third, or left arm in first and right arm in second. Regardless, the arms are not only decoration, but actually help by the way they are held and used in the execution of these jumps. The arms are also held a certain way so as to take the tension out of the neck and shoulder area and put it into the low back, particularly in the area of the fifth lumbar vertebra. There are tiny little muscles that fan out from the fifth lumbar vertebra. These tiny little muscles are shaped like this. And they're very small and they're very strong, like cords of steel. Critics noticed this common trait in all of the pupils that Vaganova trained, especially Galina Ulanova, which was one of her first pupils. Galina Ulanova had this characteristic in her dancing, that is, the ability to hold her lower back, which gave her freedom in her torso. Vaganova discovered that if the bar was held correctly, then this would facilitate the correct way in which to hold the arms. If the arms are held correctly, then the strength could be developed in the low back, thus enabling stability and security in performing the classical pas de deux. Or year in the 8-year program for the study of classical ballet has goals. Learning the positions of the feet, of which there are 5. First position, second position, third position, fourth position, and fifth position. Learning how to stand properly, how to open and close the legs in a rotated manner, as we see in battement tendu, and learning the poses are all important aspects of the first class, which is a foundation for the second class. For example, one goal of first class is also the slow introduction of demi-point work, which must be done gradually. The tendons in the body can adjust to this new position gradually, but we don't do the grand battement yet on demi-point because it is too easy to be thrown off balance. The order of how we teach everything has been carefully thought out. By the end of intermediate work, everything we do is on demi-point in the center floor. This is how we develop stability, along with how to hold the bar and how to hold the arms. We need to develop the stability and strength in the entire body, but as you can see in these videos, we don't do any big jumps yet in second class even, such as grand jetés across the floor, because we don't want ankle and knee injuries, and we don't want to break the ankles. In order to properly execute turnout, we have a special exercise that is practiced every day called battement tendu. When done correctly, battement tendu affirms rotation. There are many forms that are taught before battement tendu is executed in a quarter note. The preliminary form in September's work is in 16 quarters. You go out 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold 4 counts. You come in slowly 4 counts. And you hold 4 counts. Then, at the end of September of the first year, the first form is taught in 8 quarters. Out 2 counts, hold 2 counts, in 2 counts, and hold 2 counts. An intermittent form of 8 quarters is then taught to prepare the body for the 4-quarter form, which is out 1, hold 2, 3, 4, in 1, hold 2, 3, 4. Then it can be taught in 4 quarters. Out 1, hold 2, in 3, hold 4. After this is mastered, then the 2-quarter form can be introduced. This is where you open 1 and you close 2. And finally, the quarter note form is introduced, out on and, or on the upbeat, and then closing on the beat. All of this takes about 3/4 of a year to accomplish. So the method that we use implies whole procedure of teaching. We have a definite procedure that once mastered actually sets you free to express yourself without technical worries.